very much, Mr. Chairman. Since this morning, we have been talking about most of the presentations, with the exception of the first panel with ministers. We have been talking about Africa and we're dealing with global issues. And now we're zooming down to West Africa, because what IFPRI is asking me to do is to talk about agricultural research and technology promotion in West Africa. And so my presentation is going to focus on the promotion of research and technology in West Africa. And I'm going to tell a story. There are several ways of appreciating this topic, and I'm going to present my own way, or the way I see it. And I'm going to make reference to some of the points that have been brought out this morning during the debate. Now, this subject could be discussed within the present context of responding to the challenges of the agricultural sector in Africa in general, and also the various regions of Africa. And we have mentioned this in several of the presentations. And I want us to start from the very important policy framework that we have been referring to, which is the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, and which was, we all know, was developed by the African Union and WECARD, and which most importantly translates the heads of African states and governments' vision for transformation of agriculture in Africa. And there are two things we should note here. We're talking about the 6% agricultural growth rate and the 10% contribution of national budgets to agriculture. Now, this is a very, very powerful framework which is owned and implemented by Africans, and which is strongly leveraging the support of development partners. This is the first of its kind in the world. We've never seen that. And we have now seen that this has been replicated in other regions of the world, especially in South America. Now, what do we mean by transformation? Most of the time we talk about transformation, and most people have their own meaning of transformation. But I want to put a meaning to it so that we can all be on the same wavelength. Very simply, and I think it comes from most of what we have been saying, we could consider this to mean smallholder farmers strengthening to produce and satisfy the needs of themselves, first of all, and the population, and which also allows them to go to the market, generate revenue, and buy goods and services which they can produce. So I think this, in a nutshell, explains most of the discussions that have been going around and most of the definitions that we have been putting to transformation. But I want to stress that this transformation is focused on smallholders. And in one of the presentations, I think it was Schengen's presentation, the focus is on smallholder, and we need to know that. And we want to define smallholders, or call them something else within this context that we're talking about. We want to call them agripreneurs. Now, this is a new word derived from a marriage between two words, agriculture and entrepreneurs. So let's look at these people as agripreneurs for now. And we know that before, these smallholders, farmers in Africa, were mostly working on subsistence basis and barely producing enough to feed themselves and their families. They were also not able to generate revenue to meet the other life social needs, such as medical needs, education for children, housing, and we've named a lot of this in the previous presentations. Now, this new focus, transforming agriculture, is to try to ensure that over 400 million smallholder farmers in Africa transform to agripreneurs, and this is really very important. It is the base of the biggest social transformation agenda in Africa. So this is the reason why we're talking about CADEP, we're talking about social transformation in Africa, and it is very important. But such a transformation needs to be embedded in the foundations of science, sound science, not any kind of science, technology and innovation. And this brings me to the crux of the matter and the objective of my presentation. Now, this agenda includes the need to attract and retain the youth in agriculture and farming. We've just come out of a session where we're talking about this. To modernize farming, the use of modern ICTs and mechanization, all of which are attractive to the youth, and they have potentials in stemming youth migration to urban areas and emigration overseas. But like Usman said, there is also something else. They are here with us, but they're going to lesser productive sectors. So these are the issues that we need to capture. Now, CADEP revolves around 4 pillars. And one of these, which is, I would consider as being cross-cutting, is the agricultural research and dissemination and adoption of technologies and innovation. And we should ask ourselves, why are we talking about agricultural research and dissemination and also adoption of technologies? Now, also, we've seen a lot of meaning has been given to this. But we know that the generation and use of improved varieties and livestock breeds are needed to replace the continued use of genetically worn-out land races used by farmers. We know this. We have proved this. The use of improved farming systems that integrate the new factors of the changing and more variable climate are more compelling than ever before. We've been talking about climate change and climate variability, and this is a very important issue that we need to look at climate-smart technologies. The development of improved pre- and post-harvest handling and processing of farm products to reduce losses. And we know that more than 30% of grains, up to 45% of roots and tuber crops, and up to 80% of fisheries are lost during post-harvest, which could reduce the food insecurity that we're talking about in West Africa by up to 40% of the current level. So this is very, very important. Now, this is especially true in the hunger farming hotspots of some of our countries in West Africa: Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mauritania, and parts of Senegal. All of this in the Sahel, where the changing climate and climate variability are becoming more intense and thus threatening livelihoods and well-being of nearly 71 million people. New products of research are needed, obviously, to tackle the dwindling productivity of the natural resource base, the soils of the Sahel, the lakes and watershed. Lake Chad, for example, which supports the livelihoods of over 33 million people, has lost over 70% of its water, hence its biodiversity. So these are really big indicators and reasons why we should be talking about technology, agricultural technology, dissemination, and adoption. Now, with regards to CADEP, somebody said that CADEP has been transformed into including the policies of West Africa. And here we talk about the policy of ECOWAS, which is the ECOWAP, and the policy of UEMOA, which is about 8 countries, French-speaking West African countries. And all of these policies in West Africa aligned to CADEP. And remember that CADEP Pillar 4 is all about promotion of research and technology in Africa. And how is this addressed in West Africa? Now, FARA was mandated by the African Union to deliver on CADEP Pillar 4, and FARA in turn mandated its constituencies, and here I want to talk about CORAF, WECARD, AZARECA. These are regional institutions that are coordinating and facilitating agricultural research for development in Africa, CADESA and NASO. And these institutions were mandated to work with the national agricultural research systems of countries in these regions to implement CADEP Pillar 4. And this was based on a very important framework, which we call the African Agricultural Productivity Framework, which is normally referred to as FAP. And this framework was developed by stakeholders, agricultural stakeholders, with leadership from FARA. Now, this famous FAP has three main components. At times, we tend to overlook this, but this helps us to focus. The first is about reforming agricultural research institutions. And here, during this debate we had with the ministers, we've been bringing some of these issues have been coming up. The reforms that we've been making to our institutions, our agricultural research institutions, to promote research itself and technologies. It is also about improving coordination of programs, and this is based on fundamental declarations like the Paris Declaration, and we're using these tools to do this. We have all heard about the Multi-Donor Trust Fund. This is a tool that is used to improve coordination of programs around priority themes of our institutions, our national institutions, our regional institutions, and even some continental institutions. And we have our development partners who are contributing to this fund. It's very important because it facilitates the way we carry out research and the way we deliver on technologies. And the third component is the need to increase investment in agricultural research for development. This is very important, and analysis was made, and I think we saw graphs of investment in agricultural research for development and how this is slowly going up. And I'll later come to a very important model that would actually tell the story about the investment in agricultural research for development and also facilitating technologies and innovations. And the principles of FAP include, amongst others, the need for increased investments and technology, obviously of technology and innovations, which are used, which use process in food production and marketing. So we're linking all of this. It's not just production of technologies, but we should be linking this to markets, food production, and markets. And this also has been mentioned in the previous presentations. Now I want to zoom down to CORAF WECARD, one of these regional institutions, its links with the national agricultural systems and how it is promoting agricultural research and also technologies. Now I'll come back, I'll talk about the CORAF strategy and operational plans which were developed because we need a real clear vision on how to do this. And the strategic plan that we developed, an operational plan that CORAF WECARD developed, was aligned in the first place to the principles of FAP. And the FAP obviously is addressing Pillar 4, which is a continental vision. Now, CORAF is therefore driving the enshrinement of these principles of FAP in the National Agricultural Research Strategic Plans and National Agricultural Investment Plans. These are the tools that we say would use to implement CADEP. So we have that role of driving these principles, making sure that these principles are taken on board in the National Agricultural Research System strategic plans. We are also, CORAF is also leading the regional process of generating, improving, and disseminating technologies and innovations. At present, there's so many things going on in the region at the national level. At the regional level, we have 52 ongoing regional projects which cut across variety development and use and natural resources management in the face of the changing and more variable climate and post-harvest challenges. And we're working on priority issues. We have actually prioritized the way we work, and we're not just doing what we want to do, but focusing on those issues that would actually help to increase our gross domestic product. And we actually worked on this based on a study that was carried out by IFPRI. So it's all scientific, it's evidence-based. It's not somebody saying, I want to do this, I love it, and I can do it. But we are all responding to a very common challenge, which is improving agricultural productivity to reduce food security, and we're talking about economic growth. So we have to be very focused, and we have to actually have a scientific approach to that. CORAF WECARD is also proposing policy options. We know that there are institutions like IFPRI that are better placed than us, but we do work with IFPRI to actually develop policy options that should facilitate the natural resources management, seed sector development, and the production of agripreneurs in the region. And all what we've been doing this morning is talking about these options, and which would also encourage us to improve research, agricultural research, promote agricultural research and technologies. We are also dealing with the issues of knowledge and information sharing, because obviously we're dealing with our target clients. We need to get the information down to them. So we need to develop the necessary efficient and mechanisms which would allow these people to have a knowledge of what is going on, what technologies exist, how to use these technologies, and we are also developing all of these mechanisms with our partners, with the CGIAR, with the national agricultural institutions. Now, it's a change of paradigm, and changing to this new paradigm demands a lot of work. A huge amount of capacity strengthening exercise, changing mindsets of all the actors of the value chain, from scientists in research through farmers and entrepreneurs in the field to consumers of the products. So it's a huge job that we're doing. And we have the role of coordinating and facilitating all of this. Again, we're working with all the interested partners and our national agricultural research systems. For the regional institution, capacity strengthening is a major core function. I would like to illustrate all of this with a particular program, because I have only 10 minutes and I'm running out of time, which might help us. 15 minutes, oh, sorry. Well, I just want to mention one program. The West African Agricultural Productivity Program, which is a program coordinated by CORAF WECARD. We want to push this as a model that depicts the promotion of agricultural research and technology through regional integration and potentially ensuring sustainable investments in agricultural research for development. Now, the Honorable Minister mentioned that scientists have to come out of their silos, and this model would allow us to do that. Now, this model has a philosophy, and it contains 4 main components: creating the policy environment, coming back to policy, for facilitating the dissemination and adoption of varieties, strengthening capacity of national agricultural research institutions, and I'm talking about infrastructure and human resources, creation of national regional funds to facilitate the dissemination and adoption of agricultural technologies, and these are based on very interesting principles like integrated agricultural research for development paradigm and the value chain approach, which provide relatively rapid delivery of output effects and impacts and attracts the private sector, and the development of mechanisms such as the fiduciary mechanisms, information and communication, and M&E systems at both national and regional levels to facilitate management, the dissemination of information, knowledge, and strengthening accountability. Now, we see this model as one that would lead to sustainable investments to promote agricultural research and technology. And we are inviting our partners, including development partners, to support us in strengthening this model in West Africa. I know that IFPRI has the comparative capacity of looking at models and see how they work. We'll come back to you on how we're going to actually work on this particular model. Thank you very much.